Well,
What year?
I was born in Footscray in 1920, so that makes me 84.
80 bloody 4.
Yeah. And then I grew up in Footscray, in First Street, West Footscray. I went to school at 5 at St John's School in West Footscray, and I did the usual things that kids do when they do there. Used to go out, not like today, where you've got televisions and things like that. We made our own fun. We used to get out, and, like on school holidays and that sort of thing, we'd get out in the paddocks, get out in the paddocks, and we'd play cricket and football, dig holes, dig deep holes and all that sort of stuff.
The same stuff we weren't allowed to do when we were kids.
I left school I got my merit certificate at 12. I left school at 13 and went up to Mooryu, to my auntie's place. My uncle had a country store in Mooryu, and I stayed there for 12 months or so. And I used to give my hand out. I used to weigh up sugar and, pre-pack a lot of stuff and do all that sort of thing. And he couldn't drive his utility truck, so at 14 I used to drive his truck down to the railway siding and load up his goods and bring them back and put them in the Doover.
Didn't you need a licence?
Pardon?
Didn't you need a licence?
Well, you did, but I never had one. Yeah, he used to sit beside me. And then I come home, and then I went back to school for a while at the Melbourne Tech to do a motor mechanics course. And then I left there. I didn't finish the course. I left there, and I left, and I got a job in Gant Motors in Footscray, a Ford motor place. I started off in the workshop, but they reckoned I was too clever to be a mechanic, so they put me up in charge of the spare parts at a big spare parts place. Ford dealer it was, big showroom with Ford motor cars, all the Ford spare parts. And I stayed and worked there till at that time I joined the army for the first time. I was, 17.
Was it the army?
In the army.
Was it the army or the cadets?
No, the army.
The
I
proper
put
army.
my age up because you had to be 18, or otherwise you were a cadet. But I said I was 19.
You would have been a short 19-year-old.
Yeah. So anyway, I did that, and then I did the usual things. I played football for North Footscray. I was in a good team. I was in the 18-year-olders, and I was 16. But I played footy with them.
What position?
And after the game of footy on a Saturday, they used to go down the pub, Bill Lang's pub. And of course, I used to go with them, and I was drinking pots at that age. Pots of shandy.
And you yelled at me for getting drunk.
Well, I never got drunk. That's one thing I didn't do. I didn't get drunk.
You just didn't know.
Anyway, that went on, and I, played football, worked with Gants in the army. Used to go into a camp with them. Then the war broke out, and just before the war broke out, I got an invitation to train with Footscray. Joe Kelly was the coach, and I got an invitation to train. I went up 2 nights and trained for 2 nights, and then I joined the AIF. So that finished my football career. And I went into camp. I was called up, went into camp in May 1940, and then into Puckapunyal and did training and all that sort of thing. And then come November, we went on final leave, and I got my brother. He was in the regular army. I claimed him. Oh, how I got in the army, I was in camp with the militia, and I rang up Mum and Dad and said, listen, I want to join the army, the 2nd Field Regiment, 6th Division. And they said, no, you're not going, you're too young. And I said, what about signing me papers? No. So I just carried on, sort of thing. Anyway, that goes on for a while. And then later on, I got back onto them. They called for recruits again. And like I was in the militia camp, and I said, yeah, I'd like to go. So I rang up my mother and father again and said, look, all my mates are joining. If I can get in, will you pull me out? I'll talk to your father. So I talked to his father. He said, talk to your mother. So I talked to him. I said, look, if I can get in, will you pull me out? So they said, no. They said, you won't get in. So when I went up with the rest, I was in uniform, see, and I went up with the rest of them to Caulfield to be enlisted, and I get in there, and there was an old staff sergeant from the First World War, and he looked at me and he said, age? I said, 21. He said, what? I said, 21. He said, oh, come on. See, I looked bloody young, but I had a brilliant brainwave. At that time I was a sergeant in the militia. I said, look, I'm a sergeant and I'm already in the army, and you reckon I'm not old enough? Oh, so I got in. And up we went to Pucker, went on final leave, claimed me brother from the other thing, went on final leave and sailed for the Middle East in November. Was in Egypt Palestine actually in 1940, late 40. There, and then from Palestine we did training, then we went up the desert for the first time, all round Mersa and places like that. We did 6 months up there, then we come back to Palestine, and then they invaded Syria, so we went up to Syria, and we was up there for a little while, and then they brought, the 6th Division was there, the 7th Division was there, so they took them out in the 6th Division and sent them home to Australia. So that left us, we were the only ones, the 9th Division, left in the Middle East. Anyway, next thing we know, we're smartening up and getting loading everything up and all that sort of nonsense. Well, we're going home. Going home's right. Instead of going home, we go down and we go to Egypt in the Battle of Alamein. Jerry was coming down and he got as far as Alamein. And we were sent in and we stopped him.
So where was your first battle?
No,
where was your first battle?
First battle?
Yeah, the first place you saw action.
Mersa
Where?
Matruh.
That's the first place you saw action.
Yeah.
That was in Egypt, yeah, that was early on. This is 6 months later, 8 months, 10 months later. And we went up and we stopped him. And then like they brought in other British and Polish, New Zealanders, and we were there for 6 months, from July to November. And we started October the 23rd, we started the Battle of Alamein, and we fought him for 10 or 12, 14 days to November the 4th, and we beat him and put him on the run. But we were supposed to retake Tobruk, but we couldn't muster that many, we had that many casualties, so what we did, they sent us back to Palestine, and we had a big parade, and there it is there. We had a big parade, the thing, and then we get the next thing we know, we're on a ship, we're coming back to Australia. And we come back to Australia, to Port Melbourne, we landed, went up to Seymour, spent a couple of days there getting outfitted, sent down to home for a fortnight's leave. After being away for 2.5 bloody years, big-hearted, fortnight's leave. And then we come back and then we go up to Queensland.
Is that when you met Mum?
No, I met Mum when I come back from the Middle East. Yeah, when I come back from the Middle East. And anyway, then we up to Queensland and we bugger eyes around there for ages. And the next thing we do, we're getting ready again and we're off to Borneo. And we go up to Borneo and, for 6 months till the end of the war. We did 2 landings there. One at Brunei Bay and one at Mirai. 2 landings. And stayed there in Borneo until the war finished. I come home in December 45. Discharged in December 45. And then I got married in June 46. June 46. I went back to Gant Motors And I said, you know, that I'm worth a rise sort of thing, and they said, we're overpaying you now. So I rang up the VACC and said, what's the wages for the job I'm doing? They told me, and I said, went back to the boss and I said, you're a bloody liar. I said, you're not overpaying me at all. Shove it up your bum. So the old man knew Eric Moss, and he worked in the Department of Works and Housing. So they had a vacancy in there, so I got a job in the Department of Works and Housing as a temporary officer. And then I went back to school. At my age, 25 years, I went back to school and I studied to become a permanent officer in the Commonwealth. Eventually I became a permanent officer, so on. And in the meantime I'd been married, of course, and as I said, and then the bloody kids started to come along.
Kept coming, kept coming.
They kept coming and coming. Then I found out what caused it. Anyway, I stayed in Department of Works and Housing and worked hard, got promoted, and then I got a job in the Department of Army. Funny thing, every time I had a child, I got a promotion. So the good Lord was watching over me. And I worked in Department of Army for ages. Then I finished up in promotions. I got a promotion to the Department of Defence. And then in 1965, I think, 65, I was transferred to Canberra. Up stakes, the whole bloody family, you remember that.
Would have been 64 because I was about 3.
Yeah, you were only a kid. Yeah, up stakes and off to Canberra, so we go up there and they went to school, the kids went to school. Peter was breaking his heart, so he went back to Melbourne. Left Michael, he stayed here. He was apprenticed, he stayed here. And then Peter, I let him come back, he got a job at the railways. He come back to Melbourne and stayed with Peter. And we stayed up there till 1975, I think it was. Come back to Melbourne.
72 we came back. I was 11.
72.
72.
Oh well, we come back in 72, and then I got a place I stayed in, where was it? I forget the name of the joint we stayed at when I first came. Sindel we stayed at, and then we went to Kavanagh Street. Then I bought a place in Cheltenham. We shifted up there, and then kids went right, left and centre in all bloody directions. Then unfortunately Bet decided she'd had enough of marriage, so the marriage broke up. She went her way, I went my way, and that was the way it went. And so life just sort of carried on from there, and people went right, left and centre. You wandered all off over the place, you, and Stephen, he did the same. I finished up Peter with just Peter, and then Peter finished up getting married, so he went off on his own, so I finished up on my own. So when I stood up on my own, I come down here, stayed here, and I've been here ever since. And that's life, that's the way.
There you go. Bernie Upton's life in 13.5 minutes.
There's a lot more little pieces go in.
Oh, there's a lot. Well, you didn't go into detail of the war and things like that,
yeah,
but
what happened during the war and all that sort of nonsense, but still, that's life, isn't it?